What a thrill today on Biz 101 to have Peter Thomas, an icon in the entrepreneurial business world. He's joined us before on Biz 101 to talk about his amazing program, Life Pilot, which I highly recommend. But I've asked Peter to come back and just talk about Peter, because you are you're an amazing guy. First of all, you're claiming to be 80. You're not 80. You're only 79.
Right.
You're in your 80th year.
Right.
How do you have this energy at age 79 that most of us would kill for? Every time I've met you, you are just completely, you're like the Energizer Bunny. You're full of enthusiasm, and you've been doing this your whole life. How do you do it?
Well, I think a lot of it is lucky, just picking the right parents. I was very smart when I picked my parents, and I got good ones, and I think that a lot of that is that. But we all get what you got when you're born, and then it's what you do with it. And I think you got to take care of yourself, mentally, physically, spiritually. The people you hang with, be positive, and what do they say about life? That it just takes some common sense, but sometimes it's difficult, to have that common sense. It's just not so common. Your
story starts with you, like any other guy. Where were you? Edmonton?
Yeah, I was born in England and came to Canada with my mom. My father died very early in my life, and Mom remarried a Canadian soldier and came to Western Canada, to north of Edmonton, actually. Little place I call it Poke and Plum Town. You poke your head out the window and you're plumb out of town. It's called Perryvale.
Perryvale. Hey, I'm from Edmonton. I never even heard of it.
It's up by Athabasca.
Okay.
It's up by Athabasca.
And you today, like if we fast forward all the way through, I mean, you've got the private jets, the boats, you live the 1% of the 1% type of lifestyle. You've been self-made the whole way. What were some of the turning points for you in becoming so successful?
I think the people that I associated with. I think that I was blessed in life when I first got into business to have a manager who took me out and taught me what I really need to do. I remember I was selling mutual funds door to door, and it was all about calls, presentations, and sales. And he told me if I made 18 calls and did 3 presentations, I'd get 1 sale. And I believed him. And I didn't try and cut corners. I did my 18 calls. In fact, I used to carry around 18 paper clips and put them in this pocket. And then when they're all over here, I knew my day's work was done.
And you figured out along the way that you weren't getting paid for the 1 sale, you were getting paid for the 18 calls.
Correct. And you're always honing your skills and getting better by, I think by working harder and by doing more presentations. What's that? The harder I work, the luckier I get.
Exactly.
And so I've always been a hard worker,
So you brought Century 21, the brand, into Canada.
Correct.
At a pretty young age. What's that quick story?
Well, I just qualified to join Young Presidents Organization, and I went to the first university, and there was a group of us who were sitting just frankly having a beer, and one guy looked at me and he said, "You should be franchising." And I goes, "Okay." And he said, "Franchising real estate." And I go, "How do you franchise real estate?" Because before that was ever done before. And he said, "Well, a buddy of mine has started a company called Century 21 Real Estate. And he's in Los Angeles, and it's very hard for the little realtors to compete with the big guys because they don't have the budgets, the money for the advertising and all that. And this guy's figured it out to sort of put almost a community of real estate brokers together under one banner. And he calls it Century 21. Like sparks went off. Like, yeah, that makes sense. So I guess the thing I did differently is I was at this week university in Hawaii, and I went to my room. I said to my wife, "Honey, I'm going to LA today, and I'm going to be there tomorrow, and I'll come back on Friday." And I took the overnighter, went to LA, and I called up Art Bartlett, and I said, "My name is Peter Thomas. I was having a drink with Forrest Olson, and he suggested I give you a call. I'd like to drop by. Are you in town? Are you available?" And he said, "Yeah, but it's my last day." I said, I'm going to Europe on a holiday. I'm pretty busy, but if you're here, sure." So I went over to see him.
Did you fly over there before you set up the appointment?
Correct.
Very key.
I did.
So how important has that been for you to trust your instinct and be told there's this opportunity? You trusted it to the point of cutting short what you're doing, flying over and hoping you're going to get a meeting with the guy.
Yeah, I think urgency, a sense of urgency, is one of the things I look back. I usually jump on something if it comes along. You sort of recognize it and leap on it now. Everything becomes very important to act quickly if you see an opportunity, because other people will be taken.
Now, we talked about Life Pilot and living by your values.
Right.
Tell us a couple of examples where you made a mistake or went off track, and how you learned from that.
Well, I've been just blessed. Yeah, I really have, Randy. I look back at my life and I'm just so blessed. But I almost went broke once, and I literally went down 150 million one day, lost it all.
I hate it when that happens.
I know, yeah. Well, actually, 70 of it I didn't have. So I was underwater by an awful lot. And what I had is we were going ahead building a bunch of real estate, and the market turned. The market turned on us. And so we owed all this money. And it took me literally 5 years to work my way out of it. I have to tell you a funny story, because I was feeling pretty bad about this particular time in my life. And I remember, I was thinking, my gosh, I might go broke. And of course I had the boats and the jets, and I thought, oh my God, I could lose everything. And I was feeling so bad. I went home to my wife and I said, honey, things are looking pretty bad. And I said, I might just lose all my money. And I said, if I did lose my money, I said, would you still love me? And I'll never forget her advice, because she looked at me and she said, Peter, I'll always love you. I'll miss you. But she said, I'll always love you. So I thought, I better not lose that money. I better work hard.
And tip the waiters. We're here all week. I mean, that is a story, though, about the true entrepreneurs. There's an organization where you can belong, where you look at investing in other people's companies, and in order to join, you can't. It's not just that you're successful. You have to have built one, you have to have sold one, and you have to have blown one up.
Right.
I think it's called the A100. And
well, usually I think you learn more in your unsuccessful ventures than you do from the successful ones, and hopefully you can repeat them. And you develop a sense of, like a due diligence questions, like you've developed a way of asking people questions. And I think in business you develop a way of asking people questions. And the first thing I look at any deal I ever do is the people behind the deal. And can I work with them? Do we fit each other's, do we like to meet each other and talk about the deal and the challenges and all this stuff and that? Can you be honest and open and transparent with that person? And the people are critically important to me. Money's got nothing to do with it. It's about the people, and how much you can make is not really important. It's, will you enjoy the process with these people? And that's, I think, every deal. The Century 21, for example, was a life-changing deal for me in so many ways. It was successful, but I met some people that were just unbelievable, the guys at the head of the deal. I'll never forget, because when I got in that trouble that we talked about, losing the money, I remember that they were, I could have lost Century 21. And the credit union actually had said they were going to take it away from me. And so he said, I'd like to meet the guys that, would you, Peter, introduce me to the guys that own Century 21? I said, yeah, I guess I have to. Yes, I will. So we flew down to Los Angeles. I never prepped the president of Century 21 at all. I've never prepped him at all.
This is the same guy that you originally went to see from Hawaii?
To make the deal. Well, actually, it was his president.
Okay.
To make the deal with. But I developed a very good affinity, because he was the working guy. He was the operating guy, Richard. And so anyway, we go into his office, and Rich come in, sit down, very cordial. Americans are so cordial, and he just, a cup of coffee, could you get this? Actually, it's interesting, because his secretary was Susie Buffett, Warren Buffett's daughter. She was a secretary at that time. That's another whole story.
Wow.
But anyway, so we sat down, and so Richard said, let me catch up with this thing now, Peter. His name was Peter Bladinikoff. My name is Peter Thomas. He said, Peter, let me catch up now. Peter's gotten us some trouble here, and he owes you a bunch of money, and you're a big credit union, and you're going to probably take Peter's assets, and so you're going to get Century 21. Is kind of like that? He said, because I want to just review this. He said, well, he said, I don't know if you understand what the franchise agreement is, what it says, but it was written personally to Peter Thomas. And unfortunately, there's a clause in there that if he goes bankrupt, it disappears. He said, he can't go bankrupt.
Right.
But he said, and Richard was musing, he said, but he said if he did go bankrupt, probably what would happen is we'd need to replace him. And we want to get somebody else to run Canada. You know, we're thinking about it, he said, we probably asked Peter if he wanted to run it. And you could see the credit man just disappearing in his chair. I'll
Wow.
never forget that kindness.
Wow.
You know? And that's what real business is about. It's meeting people who you can ride, you hear the old story, ride the river with. But people who they're in the game forever. It's the game that they play, the game of life.
You've done a lot of real estate transactions,
I sure have.
and they have that adage, it's location, location, location.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying in all of your business deals, it's the people, the people, the people?
Oh, and real estate more than anything. I had an offer, the other day I had a deal come in El Paso, Texas, a hotel for sale, appraised at $14 million. I could buy the deal. The guy had it tied up for $4 million, and I could lend him $2 in a first position, because they would carry a second, not getting complicated, but for $2 million I could control a piece of real estate worth $14 million. So I like that. Sounds
Yeah.
like pretty good. I'm secure, I get interest on my money, and I own half the deal, is the way it was gonna go. I thought, I like that deal. So I said to my guy, Kirk, Kirk, run a check on this guy. And he came back, and the guy was appalling. It was like litigated, it was litigation, stuff like that.
Right.
Pass, not even a bit interested.
Doesn't matter how good the deal is,
Correct.
if you can't work with the people.
Correct.
Wow. Thank you so much, Peter, for
Absolutely.
joining us on Biz 101. What a pleasure.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks, Randy.